So while I tend to focus my videos on in-depth technical wizardry of Sega hardware, I felt I owed it to myself to have at least one video that takes a break from this format and instead tells a story regarding my history of owning Sega consoles. I'm going to start this journey in the mid-90s. It may come as a surprise, but my first experience of owning a Sega Mega Drive didn't come until December 94. This was fairly late in the Mega Drive's life, but for a kid from a poor family who'd been playing NES up till this point, it really wasn't. It's possibly the fondest memory of Christmas as a child I have. I was ecstatic to receive a Mega Drive 2 with Aladdin, Mega Games 1 and Sonic & Knuckles. In honesty, it came completely unexpected. I do wonder if my grandparents had had a hand in the purchase. One game would have been a shocker, but 5 was a dream for a 12-year-old me. My first taste of Mega Drive ownership came from Sonic & Knuckles. For some, the redesign of Sonic ruined the aesthetic, but for me it was a peak of graphical finesse on the system. This game would be my first experience of the Mega Drive doing fancy tricks. The first boss in Sonic & Knuckles used background layers and sprites to create a clever illusion of depth. The game never did anything super crazy regarding sprite manipulation and the like, but it did show the Mega Drive doing some quality graphics. Next on my playlist for Christmas Day was Aladdin. While a pretty easy game to complete, its presentation and sophisticated animation drew me in for repeated plays. Finally, Mega Games 1. I occasionally played Columns with its classic soundtrack. World Cup Italia 90 for its random scoring cutscene with a man screeching in the Mega Drive's classic scratchy PCM voice, but it was Super Hang-On that really clicked with me. Its beautiful soundtrack and line-scrolling racetrack were appealing, but the real gem of this game came in its original mode. A strange mesh of elements, a vague storyline, odd bits of written dialogue, and the ability to upgrade your bike. It really sat well with me, and I often draw parallels with this and Ridge Racer Type 4, which was one of my favourite PlayStation games. Which, as ridiculous as it sounds, I still own, but don't have a PlayStation to play it on. Our Christmas story doesn't quite end here. Santa Claus had apparently informed my mum that certain stores within the town centre were doing double packs of games. For some reason or another, he'd suggested I might want to go and have a look. There were a number of packs, and for some reason I went with Telstar Double Value Games, Zool and James Pond 3 Operation Starfish. These were 2 additional games to my growing collection, but I never felt they were as good as the first 5. Zool had been hyped to be as good a game as Sonic, and in my eyes it just wasn't, even with its fancy Chupa Chup branding. James Pond 3, however, did catch my attention more. It was a bit reminiscent of a Mario game, with the speed of a Sonic game. Not as good or as entertaining as either though. The game's PCM speech also caught my attention, as I was a bit of a sucker for PCM audio at that time. The time between Christmas and New Year seemed to fly by. The announced release of Street Racer caught my eye, because it looked a bit like Super Mario Kart, but was on the Mega Drive, and on the SNES as I'd soon find out. I purchased it, and I was soon excitedly playing. A friend got the SNES version, and we compared the two. I was met by the shocking revelation that you couldn't turn around on the Mega Drive version like you could on the SNES. It totally broke the illusion that I'd been led to believe that the Mega Drive could do Mode 7. At some point in 1995, I bought a second-hand copy of Rocket Knight Adventures from the market. The game was 2 years old by this point and pretty cheap. I was not disappointed. It had some incredible music, graphical effects and gameplay. It's always perplexed me how Konami ended up being such a mixed bag when they had such a strong set of character IP to work off. 1995 was also the year that saw me buy Cosmic Spacehead by Codemasters. I don't exactly remember when, but it was one of the few point and clicks on the system. It had a series of quirky platforming sections that everybody hated bar me. The interesting part of the game that I played a lot with one of my friends was the 2-player Pie Slap. This 2-player minigame involved 2 dinosaurs in an arena trying to hit each other with pies. Power-ups could be collected, allowing you to fire more pies, bounce them off walls, and steer them around corners. It was during the summer of 1995, which bizarrely I primarily remember for the release of Power Rangers and not the release of the Saturn, that I first experienced the Sega Mega CD Model 1. I was lucky enough to have a friend lend it to me for a number of weeks over the summer holiday. Me and my friends spent hours playing his huge library for the system. There were a lot of FMV games, so I got a real taste for the format. We started with Sonic CD, which I completed within a week, and whose intro I sat and watched repeatedly on my own, mesmerised by the animation that I would soon eventually learn in my college years was anime. I got to play Night Trap, the supposedly X-rated game of the time, which wasn't the slightest bit scary. I got to play Ground Zero Texas, which I still consider to be one of the most interesting FMV games on the system. Well, from a story perspective anyway. I got to sample the CD version of Mortal Kombat, which really didn't blow me away. I thought at the time the load times were awful, and other than the FMV at the start, it didn't really offer much over the cartridge version. I got my first go at Lethal Enforcers using the Justifier. I'd never played the cart version at the time, and having done so recently, I realised the Mega CD soundtrack really does add something to the atmosphere of the game. Terminator was an impressive platformer with fluid animation and great music, and really crap FMV. Batman Returns has some amazing car-based levels, using the ASICs to scale and rotate things. And then it had some crappy platform levels. Echo the Dolphin added some interesting audio effects and a bit of FMV, but not much else. And finally, FIFA International Soccer CD, which to me is probably the best version of FIFA on the system. The summer flew by and it was soon my birthday. I got sparks to Rocket Knight Adventures 2. The sequel did change things up a bit, but it didn't quite have the same charm as the original. I also got Ristar, which I found really entertaining and just as good as any Sonic game. Beautiful graphics and a fantastic soundtrack if you can excuse the poor sound implementation. The sound issues boil down to the game's use of the MPS 68K sound driver that used the Mega Drive CPU. The driver was chosen for its ability to mix and play multiple PCM sound effects simultaneously, such as drums and speech. Unfortunately, the PCM quality suffers under high CPU load. Other than that, the game is fantastic, and it's a shame that Ristar got left behind at the end of the Mega Drive's life. As the summer came to a close, a friend had brought over Shining Force 2. I loved everything about the game. The gameplay, the music, the art direction. It ticked all the boxes for me. The storyline and scripting was a little bit cheesy, but at 13 it drew me in, and within a couple of months I had my own copy. I still consider it one of my favourite Mega Drive games of all time. As we came to the end of 1995, Christmas saw me pick up Soleil. The game was very Zelda-like, and seems to have similarities to Story of Thor. In Soleil you collect animals with special abilities. In Story of Thor you collect spirits with special abilities. My biggest problem with Soleil was it was easy to complete, and I did it in a matter of weeks. Fortunately I managed to trade it in for something much better, but we won't find out about that until 1996. So that's my 1995 in a nutshell. I've covered only the standout games I owned in that year, and haven't really gone into any of the games my friends brought over to my house during that period, other than the Sega CD of course. So what's next? 1996 of course, which I'll hopefully be able to cover in a future video. Strangely, things don't go where you might expect. Anyhow, I'll end my history of Sega consoles 1994 to 1995 here by first saying a huge thank you for watching this video to the end. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. I forgot to include this game, or maybe my brain was doing me a favour. You have to wonder with games like this how Sony ever made the PlayStation. Morse code translation, help me, it's a crap FMV game. The Zito stamp of approval. Hasbro, I wish I was watching Transformers. This guy did the special effects for the original Star Wars. What happened? It's very telling when even the in-game ship is trying to run away. And it blew itself up. Does that mean I don't have to play? Time to press start. I was thinking the same thing. If proving myself good enough means playing this shit, then I'll happily give it a miss. I'm honestly not sure I can. Catfish. Is Ghost known for fake profiles on Facebook? How unfortunate. Ooh, that number calling isn't going to get annoying at all. If anybody ever tells you this is a good game, and I mean any reviewer on YouTube, I recommend you leave the area immediately and call the emergency services. I can't even bring myself to play it, it's that shit. The fart guitars are giving me flashbacks to the original Doom on 32X. In fairness, I'd play that over this at this point.